Hey, everybody. It is Bridgette Lynn Dolgoff, and I'm here with Dr. Lenny Time and Karen Pozeski, and we are doing our collab, cooperative lab discussion of the week. And Victor couldn't make it because he was hungover. Okay, so I was just going to start out the conversation today on something that I read with Rudolf Steiner, because I'm, going back out of, from all of the hands-on training I had with biodynamics, anthroposophy medicine, and phenomenology 12 years ago or so. And I'm going back and actually doing the studies on the books and getting a certification, which is kind of exciting. All right. So this is after the fourth lecture in the book, and there's a question that's geared towards Steiner. And so this is called the first discussion chapter after the fourth chapter. And we're talking about preparations in case people don't know. And so we put them in the ground and we stir them. We structure the water, hand stir it for an hour back and forth, vortex it one way, vortex it the other way. And we go back and forth for an hour until the preparations are actually bound to the water. And then we usually filter them out and then use them for sprays. We also use, not only the horn preps and manure preparations, but we use silica, which is, clear quartz crystals that we grind up into powder. We put those in the ground and horns to cure, so that the cosmic and earth energies can bind to it. And so it's talking, and also we use homeopathic, any kind of anthroposophy homeopathic medicines. We do also, there are many biodynamic people in Europe, especially Italy, that use the biodynamic or the anthroposophy homeopathic human remedies for also in the water, structuring it and stirring it. So this was just a kind of an interesting thing that came along that I 100% agree with, but we don't really talk about this stuff. Okay, so the question that was put to Steiner is it all right to use a machine to stir the manure for larger areas, or is that not permissible? Because we have a lot of conflict in biodynamics. Do we hand stir it? One thing that I learned from hand stirring was that there's a huge microbial mass in the horn manures and barrel preparations and stuff like that. And when you're stirring it, you're kind of in the water. And there's this backsplash, off gassing while your head's down in that bucket that you're breathing in these microorganisms, right? The fumes from them. And it actually can make you feel lots better. I mean, at first, when you're first doing it, it can make you sick because you're not used to it, all of the microorganisms. But once you start getting used to it, then you're good to go. So anyway, and this was Steiner's response. Well, you can either be quite strict about things like that, or you can decide to gradually slide towards surrogates. There's no question that stirring by hand has quite a different significance than mechanical stirring, although of course someone with a mechanical worldwide view would never admit it. Just consider what a huge difference there really is when you stir by hand. All the fine movements of your hand going into the stirring, and quite possibly all kinds of other things do too, including the feelings you have as you stir. People nowadays don't think that makes a difference, but in the field of medicine, for instance, the difference is quite noticeable. Believe me, it is not really a matter of indifference whether a certain medication is prepared by hand or machine. Something is imparted to the things that are produced by hand. You mustn't laugh at this. I have often been asked what I thought about Ritter remedies, about which some of you may have heard. As you know, some people singing their praise of these remedies while others go around saying they have no particular effect at all. Of course, they do have an effect, but I'm firmly convinced that they would lose a great deal of their effectiveness if they became available commercially. With these medicines in particular, it makes a great difference when a doctor prepares the remedy and gives it directly to the patient. A certain enthusiasm is administered along with the remedy when it all occurs only in small circles. You may say that enthusiasm cannot be weighed or measured, but enthusiastic doctor is an inspired doctor, and the doctor's enthusiasm supports the dynamic effect of the medicine. After all, light has a strong influence on remedies, so why shouldn't enthusiasm? I just thought that was like I mean, that's how I
Could you
feel
read
about.
that last line one more time? What was the metaphor? What was compared to enthusiasm?
Okay. It says,
The very last line.
you want me to read the whole part of the enthusiasm?
No. The last line. Why shouldn't enthusiasm? What was right before that paraphrase?
It says, after all, light has a strong influence on remedies. So why
Okay.
shouldn't enthusiasm?
Okay. Light. Okay. That's what I missed. Thank you.
But isn't that a great topic? I mean, just something to think about because, we mass produce mechanical medicine for everybody when, somebody like even just taking the herbal, going out and collecting wild plant medicine this summer. And I make all my own herbal medicines now. And just, my relationship to the plants out there, where they're growing, their relationship to each other, not mass producing something. It has its touch. It's not, just machine touch. But anyway, it was just kind of I loved it because, you know, this lecture was given in 1924, and people were already laughing and poo-pooing, poo-pooing hand medicine and all of these ideas that Steiner had about the land and people and medicine and nutrition. And so it was like going south back then. People lost their intention towards, proper medicine. But anyway, I just love that enthusiasm. So
Oh
why
yeah.
why shouldn't enthusiasm be a remedy? Because the enthusiasm of the person preparing the soil or preparing the medicine or preparing the food or, those kinds of things. Anyway, I just thought I would read that because it was kind of cool.
A lot of it
Definitely.
is about keeping the focus on what you're doing and not allowing yourself to have your mind wander away, so that by stirring it manually and being involved, you have to be right there with the preparation as you're doing it. Whereas nowadays, with multitasking, people like to do a lot of things badly all at the same time.
I agree. What it brought up for me when you were talking about that is just that how mass producing in general, uh, I believe, was basically driven by the goal to make money. And basically, are we still on?
Yes, we're still on.
Oh, okay. And basically, I think I I think there's a bunch of magic that goes into, um, you know, personally doing it. And I mean, something mass produced versus, just done by hand, whether it's like sewing, healthcare, like when life turned into an auto assembly line in every single um, industry vertical, I think it did a lot of damage to um, the things we prepare, the things, just the quality of life. It our being in tune spiritually, mentally, because the whole thing is, move it along, productivity means more profits, this feeds your family, job, where it takes away from that whole concept of being in the moment, that's, socially or personally. But then also, I I I totally believe, just based on what I've learned and studied about sunlight, uh, just listening to you talk, Bridgette, and Dr. Lenny, listening to you talk about water. I mean, all of that is consciousness and enthusiasm. I'm confident probably is a catalyst for, energy, like positive energy. So I love that last line.
Yeah, and so Native people that I've studied with, we're always talking about our relations, all my relations, Mitaki Uasin. And so I think when we start mechanizing a lot of this kind of stuff, we stop losing the relationship. And also the prayer, which is also part of the intentionality and the consciousness. Because, you know, when we stir or like we work with the earth traditionally, for example, when Native people make, say, a leather shirt that has a lot of, things coming off of it, how
Mhm.
you'll see those fringes across the front, the arms, the back. Well, they serve lots of purposes. One of them, with water and snow in particular, you can walk through snow and the fringe will move and it'll knock the snow off. So you don't get ice frozen to you. So you stay drier. Um, the other thing all that fringe is their individual prayers. So when that person wears it and they're moving, it's activating those fringe on there, which are prayers that are going out, into the air, into the snow, into the water, to the environment, to the trees. And so when we don't make things like that anymore, and we don't have a relationship to things like that anymore, then we lose this. I think like we lose the soul or the spirit in everything, including ourselves.
Oh, absolutely. And I was going to add that it's a win-win situation for preparing. Um, whether it's, a cooking activity or, like a biodynamic farming activity. And so it's good for the consciousness of the manure, the water, whatever it is you're dealing with. But then it's also a win situation for the person. Um, like Dr. Lenny said, it allows them to be present in the moment and attentive and focused, and there's a bonding there. Like there's care, there is emotion, there's
Love.
love. There we go. There's love. And when you take that element away, or that dynamic isn't there, then everything kind of feels mass produced, and really, and that's all for the benefit, well, not for the consciousness of things that do have consciousness, that typically people are like, oh, it's just manure, or oh, it's just water. No, it's energy. It's got, has consciousness. But it ultimately taking that hand to product process, or I don't want to say product, but that the process of doing things like one-on-one directly, you took that away, and it was basically to appease, this is my opinion. The focus became mass production for the benefit of profit.
Well, the other part that is really sad about the whole thing is it made everybody also irresponsible. Because once you started making medicine for people, people weren't responsible for growing herbs in their yard, for medicines that they may need. And also knowing how to like utilize those medicines. And once you started growing a lot of food, people stopped growing food. So people don't, it's interesting because I always have these people when I go out and I'll teach like a class, like on composting or something else. And, people will comment, uh, that, they don't need to take a compost class because they know everything about compost because they have a compost. But yet I go look at that compost and it's like, death. It has nothing living in it. There's like no living, stuff in it. And
Right.
so nobody knows how to do any of this stuff anymore because we keep mass producing stuff. And then we make stuff that's totally bogus. Like, for example, stand up. People love to buy these stand up composts that are above the ground that you put your stuff into, because they think if they put it in there, then it won't smell. Well, if they did it properly in the first place, it wouldn't smell. You could even put a dead animal in there and it wouldn't even attract a fly. Um, but
Wow, that's interesting.
yeah, they have these stand up ones that they put stuff in, but they're not getting microbes from the ground to come up into. They think it's all about the red worm or just sticking it in there. And then usually it's a plastic environment. So any compost that may come out of it, which is not going to be good, is going to be high in plastics. Because
Oh,
it's
and
going to,
Dr. Lenny knows a lot. I mean, we had a discussion one time about the plastic and what that does.
oh yeah, let's hear it from Lenny. Come on, Lenny, tell us about that.
Yeah, there's something called the broken window fallacy that people seem to think that if you replace a broken window, that you're building economy, and they don't realize that the breaking of the window was a loss of value at that point. And so we're used to getting much lower quality of goods and services because with the whole thing of built-in obsolescence just makes it so that they're churning things instead of producing true value. But plastic really is a derivative of oil that takes carbon and ties it up in a way that it isn't part of the ecosystem. It's just there taking up space. And normally, your living earth would try and break things down and build them up in other ways. But plastics take these small units and just put them together irreversibly. So if somebody has a way of feeding plastics to mushrooms that would break them back down into small organic compounds, that's likely a good fuel source. But right now, plastic just collects, and you can see from the floating plastic island in the Pacific, it has gotten excessive.
I think what
So,
a plastic bag takes 500 years to break down, not biodegrade, but to break down in a landfill.
Landfills are just not created properly. They're set up as tombs so that you don't get airflow,
Yeah.
but it's the oxygen in the air that breaks things down.
But
So,
I'm just saying break it down. They don't even use the word decompose when it comes to plastic. They'll say, "Oh, it'll take about in a landfill 100 years to break down." But that still doesn't mean decompose. Because in the ocean, all that plastic, that is breaking down because of the salt, is a little bit corrosive. They still can find it as mini particles. And they see all these fish, like shrimps and stuff. They can see a lot of these plastic particles in their digestive tract. So it's not really biodegrading, right? They're just kind of
no,
breaking
it's
down.
not. There's no mechanism for biodegrading. So it's like you get a smaller and smaller patch of the plastic as it physically tears itself apart, but it doesn't really break down, and you don't ever undo the plastic into its original material. And even when they were recycling many different plastics 20, 30 years ago, the recycling was just used to reform new plastics. It really wasn't to return the material into viable use.
Yeah, Rudolf Steiner is probably rolling over in his grave. Plastic probably would be a horrific thing for him. He was in the beginning of the book, we were talking about, because I'm going back and I'm studying his actual work, which I never really got a chance to with the books. There wasn't any classes offered till now that I could take. And one of the things he says, Lenny and I kind of had a talk about it a week ago or 2 weeks ago, was on carbon, because he says in his books that in this book that carbon creates the form, of whatever the thing is going to be, right? So it actually creates the form. So anyway, based on some of that, I was asking my teacher in the class, like, if carbon is, the number one thing in this reality that helps to start the form, to create the form, and then there's a lot of other components, right, that make everything else, work and bring it together. But I said, if carbon, positive carbon is the one that actually, helps to create the form of whatever the living thing is going to be, right, on Earth, then I said, what the things like negative carbon? I mean, like, what's your idea of what, from that presentation of Steiner and carbon, what do you think that all this negative carbon is doing? Is it kind of creating forms from a different kinds of place? And so he said, well, I'm not going to engage you until the next course, and that starts Thursday, this other course that I'm taking for 4 months. But it kind of did indicate, like, okay, since we have all this negative carbon, that, I mean, it's changing the form of everything on the planet as it comes into being, right? So it's kind of like the difference between humans and AI, right? Or human versus transhuman. And so you have positive carbon in the type of life form that it helps to form, whether it's a human, a plant, a seed, you know, all those different kinds of things. Or you have the negative carbon that's turning us into, more like machinery.
That was a
What
good metaphor.
I
And so
think,
he said, he goes, I won't totally engage you on this. He said, until the next course, but he said, you're headed in the right direction. And I was like, oh my God. So the more that they take away the natural landscape, the more they take off the topsoil and build buildings and concrete and pavement and redirect all the water and all this other stuff, um, the less positive carbon we have. So then all the forms that are created from us, right, become it kind of becomes kind of a scary kind of conclusion. Anyway, go ahead, Lenny. I can hear you back there.
I always look at carbon as being sort of like an erector set. It's the basis of providing the structure, but the carbon itself isn't the interesting part. It's the oxygen, the sulfur, the nitrogen, the phosphorus
And the
that
lime, yeah, yeah.
really go. And I think that water has its own intelligence. And so that once water gets into a certain structural form, it remembers that form and always tries to get back to it. So you can imagine that in homeopathy, the water solution has taken the form of the substrate. And even though there's technically no substrate left in the solution, the water still believes it's there because it knows the form and carries that with it.
Interesting. So, yeah, so look what we've done to water. Ooh, we've like really macerated it into weird forms that it would never want to have a relationship with.
Yeah, I think that the real problem that we're facing right now is one of massive corporate industrial disease, and that until we can make corporations responsible for their own pollution and have them balance the equations of what they make so that there are no waste byproducts, that everything is handled, that we don't stand a snowball's chance in hell of getting the problem fixed. The
I
first
agree.
way to solve the problem is to stop doing the things that contribute to the problem.
And then have to find solutions to clean it up. Like, how do you get rid of particles, plastic in the ocean that you can't even see, that have been broken down? I mean,
Well,
how?
if there hadn't, sorry, I didn't mean to
Go,
interrupt. Go
no,
ahead.
go ahead. No, you.
I just can't help but think if there hadn't been this massive push for consumerism, then everything became about, well, how can you take something and reinvent it so that we get a surge in sales or whatever? And these things aren't really necessary. Like, okay, what you mentioned about that one product where it reportedly takes the odor out. Well, is that a need or is that just a want? And each time that you come up with these marketing gigs to so-called like improve life quality, improve the process, you're removing people further and further away from nature. And people and when that happens, and not only that, you're taking the magic, we talked about taking out the magic with the enthusiasm and the consciousness and the light and all of that good stuff. But then the regular person doesn't understand why, why go buy a case of water and, like you're creating a demand you're fulfilling that. And they're think, oh, I'm being healthy, I'm buying water, because at this point it's so mass produced that no one's breaking down their thoughts down to that, I guess, tell me if I'm right, Dr. Lenny, that quantum idea of direct producing. And when you direct produce and you're mindful, you can, you see the process, you see the connection, and you wouldn't even think about, oh, I'm going to go out and buy this that's in plastic, because I mean, everything is about cutting corners, saving time, opening it easier, making it less odorous, making it tasteless so you don't get a bitter taste. And all of that, everyone's always just up the idea, up the idea, up the idea, market it this way, market it this way. And all of those gimmicks,
Well, yeah, I
it's
mean, you think about like toothpaste. People, I mean, Lenny has his own toothpaste remedy that he makes, but people, people in France were really into like toothpaste back in the day. They'd use like ground up, like, seashells and all kinds of different kinds of things in it and to brush their teeth to make their, teeth whiter.
that's
Um,
so cool. I never knew that. I
yeah,
always
no,
wondered though.
people have like really kind of been into that kind of stuff. Or in India, they like to chew on different things like neem or clove. They chew on it until their teeth are clean. Or they do a thing called oil pulling in India, where they take coconut or sesame seed oil or just any kind of oil, and you push it back and forth through your teeth for like 20 minutes, and it actually will regenerate your teeth. It'll kill all microbial, bacteria, microbial, viral stuff, and also it gets rid of any kind of plaque and cavities.
Yeah,
So,
but you don't want to look at what you just spit out or smell it.
no, yeah, no, you don't want to. It can be really, really gross. Plus, you have to because we're not used to it. We have to build our lips up to be able to swish it around for 20 minutes. But, you think about toothpaste. And so then they make this caca toothpaste that looks literally like snake poop. I don't know if you've ever seen snake poop, but toothpaste looks like snake poop, the regular kind. And
Great.
they put it in a container, with all this fluoride and all this stuff in it that isn't really beneficial to your body. It's not biologically sound. I mean, even on the back, it'll say, if you swallow any amount of the toothpaste that you just put in your mouth, you're supposed to call the, poison prevention center. That's what it says. If swallowed, and you're like, okay, why am I putting something like that in my mouth? Well, anyway, a friend of mine was telling me that back in the 70s or 80s, maybe early 80s, the toothpaste industries needed to make more money, the mainstream ones that are selling toxic stuff. And so they couldn't get people to buy more toothpaste. They couldn't like get any kind of subliminal message out there that people would buy actually more toothpaste, than they needed. So what they did, they made the hole bigger. So you were forced to use more every time you brush your teeth so they can get more money.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's honestly, it wouldn't then even when they market it. Did you ever see how much toothpaste they put on a toothbrush in a commercial? I mean, literally, it looks like you could brush like elephant's teeth. There's so much.
It's so true. It's totally true.
I mean, seriously. And, I went to Clemson University, and they were one of the top schools in the nation for this major called packaging science. And at the time, I was like 18, and what's your major? Packaging science. I was just getting out from parents' house and learning about the world, and I'm like, what's that? And they're like, it's a whole thing to study about on packaging products that people buy. I mean, there's a whole field for that. On one hand, you're like, okay, well then that builds jobs. But then on the other hand, there would be jobs if we weren't creating, mass producing stuff that we don't need, and thereby, creating a demand for creative
I think one
packaging
of the
or
things we
packaging
don't need are
solutions.
oh, I think one of the things we don't need are the jobs, especially not the make work jobs. But we
Yeah.
have a real problem anymore defining quality and quantity because most people think that more is better and a lot of something is best. Whereas I learned that good stuff in moderation is way better than lots of really junky stuff.
And a
Hey,
little bit goes a far way.
yeah. So what? Tell people you had a toothpaste recipe for a while there. So what you had
Yeah,
like?
the
Tell people what you
toothpaste
had in it.
recipe
Salt.
was fairly easy. It was salt, baking soda, hydrogen peroxide, which has water in it. And when you stir it up with a silver spoon, it puts silver particles in it and turns it all blue. And
Oh,
so
that's so
that was
cool.
the thing. And you used little enough hydrogen peroxide that the solid would coagulate, but you didn't need a lot of liquid because you really wanted it to be more of a paste. But between the peroxide and the baking soda, once you put the salt in, it does form a nice little paste. And while it doesn't squirt like you have it in a tube, it's more than enough. You can add something like crushed eggshells in order to get an abrasive there and also have calcium in it, but you really don't even need that.
Yeah. So
What?
everybody out there, it's way easy. I just got this new product because I have this gum line that's kind of going up, and I follow these people that do dental stuff, alternative dental stuff. They've been on my email. I get emails from them all the time for like the last 8 years when they first started it. Anyway, it's called Regrow, and it really works. It's a remineralization tooth and gum powder. And basically, what you do is you take yogurt. You get a yogurt, like a really good bacteria-rich yogurt. Even a homemade yogurt probably would go well. And then you put a little of the powder on, and then you brush your teeth with it, and then you let it sit overnight while you go to sleep.
That's so cool. Would you
And I saw that
forward
I
that?
saw yeah, a friend of mine had a big black cavity in her one of her molars, and so she started doing this one. Actually, she was making her own for a while before they had anything like this on the market. It's been recently. But she was making her own, and it took 2 years, but completely healed that tooth of the whole cavity.
That is so cool. I definitely would love to, if you think about it, forward me one of their emails and then I'll know who they are and I can follow them.
Yeah, so this has it has
Or do you know the name of it? And then maybe when we post this on YouTube, I can like put a link in case anybody else is interested in that.
yeah, this the website for this regrow stuff is regrowbrand.com. And then the ingredients are diatomaceous earth, non-GMO birch xylitol. Xylitol, if you use it as a sugar, can actually clean plaque out of your arteries, and it cleans plaque off your teeth as well. Xylitol is like, um, a good sugar if you're cleaning yourself up, especially like cleaning up your arteries and your teeth. It has organic premium grade matcha, organic peppermint, organic Ceylon cinnamon in it. So it doesn't have like tons of stuff. And I imagine the diatomaceous earth, because it has a lot of silica in it. Silica is really good with bone, probably is a good ingredient. But here, this is what it says that you do with it. Brush with organic plain dairy or non-dairy yogurt. Make a paste with regrow and yogurt. Brush paste on teeth. Do not rinse. And I think on the one website I saw, the girl said in the, comments below, she said it's best if you, I mean, you could brush your teeth with this twice a day, but the best one is at night if you let it sit on your teeth. Anyway, any thoughts from the peanut gallery?
I'm what's going through my mind right now is it sounds like an awesome product, and I'm surprised that it's not like mainstream. But then I thought if it went mainstream, then the quality of it, like something would be compromised with it. So it
Well,
probably is
if it
better
went
to stay.
mainstream, you wouldn't need a dentist anymore.
Uh,
If your tooth could, like, say you have a
good
big black
point.
hole in it, and then you start using this stuff instead of toothpaste, and then the big black cavity hole goes away, it fills back in with the tooth. I mean, if people knew that your teeth sort of could regenerate, they can't regenerate like all the way, but they can heal for sure.
Amazing.
I'm not sure of that statement. I think teeth can regenerate. I think
They get
they
the whole way, all the way.
yeah, I think that if you believe that you can regenerate your teeth, you can. But if you don't believe it, if you believe what they're telling you from the dental profession, then they've got you and you can't. But I think that in places where I've lost teeth, I've begun the process of generating new replacement teeth to fill in for them.
All
Wow.
right, go Lenny, go.
No more dentures.
Yeah. No, I think it's easier for them just to get rid of all of our teeth. Well, it's experimental too. Oh, hey, you know what, Karen? I don't know if you heard this, that Karen and I were talking the other day. I don't know. I don't think this got on radio. I don't think it was a public till now. No. But Karen was saying that in some of the social work that she did, there were people that actually, something that is a conspiracy out there, which I believe is fact, because I've heard it from a lot of different people, that had chips in their teeth from the dentist, like the chip
Yeah.
tracking chips.
Yeah. And she never knew it.
Yeah, they never tell you, but it's in there. Yeah. What do you think,
Dentists
Lynn?
are as slimy as doctors.
They are. I think dentists are even slimier. Some of them are really mean.
Well, I mean, this is a little bit different situation. This is a person who is trafficked. And so she was owned by somebody.
Well, we're all
And
no,
and she
Karen.
went like do you
We just
remember she went missing for like almost until she finally came up for air in April. And I because not it was just after that that Isaac Cappy Hollywood guy. Oh my God, I was so irritated when he did this whole call to action, like survivor stories, don't hide anymore, tell the truth. And it's like, whoa, whoa. Just because this one girl, Ashley, did this and told her story on Twitter doesn't mean that every other person that's been through this can do that. They may not have the same resources. I mean, once you put yourself out there, you can't, once the horse is out of the barn, it's out of the barn. And sure enough, she felt comfortable. I mean, she just was getting, how like people start a campaign like that and people are saying, and you kind of like, what is that phrase, like that idiom? You get on the bandwagon just because everyone's enthusiastic and everybody's doing it, like that ice bucket challenge, and and you do it, you're not even thinking about it. And so she shared about the tooth. She also and slowly had her story, doing that whole survivor stories thing, and she just disclosed in small bits throughout several months some of the very prominent people that she claims and reportedly has, been assigned to or whatever, and including ex-vice presidents, all kinds of stuff. And it wasn't that much. I mean, and then she went to the dentist and she had the chip and they took it off. And I mean, she actually disclosed this as she's getting all this support from people saying, you're so brave, you're so brave. And that feels really great. But it's like, you're still in trouble. Like, you're like right now, especially you have 2 kids. Whoa. Like, do you have a safe house? Do you have a family? Do you have income? Like, do you have, I mean, because
Well,
if
but
you
you
had
know that
if
thing
you have
with
a chip on your tooth, and you like, oh, I took the I would imagine that the people are going to come, and then sure enough, I think it was like 5 or 6 days later, poof. And I tried to reach out to everybody in the community nationwide, even uh, like North America, Europe, and I was like, just seeing if anybody has seen this person. And then finally she showed up, and I was like, oh my gosh, thank God you're okay. And like, what happened? She was sent to a psych facility. Her children were removed. You
But you
know,
know, one thing I've learned about people like her, or people like even myself, or I have clients that are MK Ultra
that's what.
programs,
Mm-hmm.
and I have several good friends that were MK Ultra. But one of the things that I've learned is that the more public they are, the safer they are.
Well,
It's
that's
when
a
they,
theory.
well, no,
That's a
it
that's a
right.
theory, because if you're a single mom with 2 children and you were rooted from another continent and you have no family, you have no resources, how are you supposed to protect yourself from like the black suits?
Well, the thing is they're never going to let you have those things anyway. So being in hiding is not going to help you. If they want to take your children, they're going to take your children. For example, there's a guy named Dr. Haros. I think he's Swiss. I can't remember exactly. But he went to college, PhD in history, kind of more Kabbalah type history. And it was one of them. You know, he's a lower class Illuminati, you know, probably like a part of the branch, and then knows a lot about it and went to school, the history. And he got super pissed off at them, and he didn't really like, you know, what they're doing to the world. So he decided that he was going to, you know, start talking to people about this kind of stuff. But before he started talking to people about it, um, and what really pushed him over the edge was that they came for his oldest son and sacrificed him in a ritual sacrifice. Not because he was going to be talking to people about what they're doing and all the symbols, but because that's what they do. And he was so angry at what they did, then he went public. And he's done all kinds of videos called the Pharaoh Show, um, the Pharaoh Show France, the Pharaoh Show, and they were keeping him from being able to put him on the internet in the other countries. And America was the only place, because of the First Amendment, that he could actually get them up. So people in America were helping him to get these videos up. And basically, he's, you know, poor, and he has a backpack and a tent, and he travels by foot through a lot of these historical European areas and shows people all the fixtures on all the buildings and tells you exactly what they mean and who lives in them, right? And he tells you things about them, that they ate humans, right? And
Yeah.
and so he came out as a rebellion to what they did to his son. So he was not protected, you know, being quiet.
I get that, but I think anything like that, it can't be generalized, and it's a very personal decision. And
It
not
is.
everybody is cut out of like the same thread. I think it's the kind of situation where you have to consider all the potential consequences. You got to really compile the data, like, you know, you know,
But you
I
have
mean,
things like you know, there's a video on the internet, and it shows like a teenage boy who's Asian, and he's literally naked, and he's using like bed sheets tied together to crawl out of the third story castle window downtown in England, wherever the big castle is. You know, so the thing
no,
is
no,
that
no. That's it. Wait, that was a little boy, because I've seen a photo of like a teenage boy that I mean,
Yeah,
it's
he's like a
reported.
teenage
I have
boy.
no way to verify, but he was coming out of
No, there's a
what's the
video.
name of the queen, the Windsors. What
Windsor.
is the
Yeah,
name? Big
Windsor
palace with
Palace.
Padding.
Windsor Palace.
No, it's called Parliament. No, it's called. Yeah, my mentation isn't the best at night.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Well,
I saw
anyways,
that picture too.
no, it's a video, and
Oh,
these
oh, it's a
tourists are
video.
taking it and they're laughing about it. But the thing is that if people don't start coming out and talking about what's happening to people that get
I
kidnapped,
I
take
agree, but I
people
don't.
will never believe what's happening.
I agree, but I believe it's a very personal
Yeah,
decision, autonomy, and I don't think it's right to bully people
right.
into, or like, and maybe not so much bullying, but like appeal to them via their emotion, like finally get it out, be free, and that can kind of cloud judgment. I think you first have to slow down, be prudent, take in all the information, deliberate, consider the consequences, weigh the pros and cons, and make the decision that's best for you. Again, not everyone's cut from the same thread, different people. I mean, maybe some people it takes to a certain point of desperation that they speak out. Other people may have like resources that are available to them. And, people that have escaped Scientology, they, like there's some examples there and stuff. So everybody's situation is different. But yeah, I definitely agree with you, but just want to point out that, it has to be a decision that you're not like incited into making or bullied into making, because everyone's individual situation is different.
Yeah, no, I 100%, I 100% agree
But I'm
with that.
glad that, that's really cool that he's like, it's not cool that this happened to him, but I like that concept of like town to town and in
Yeah,
person
they're on YouTube, so
awareness.
you should watch them because they'll blow your mind off. They will, probably more so than anything you ever seen in your life. That will just totally blow your lid completely
Well,
off.
bless him, because I mean, I just, wow, that's
Well, the
awful
thing
for him,
is
but
we
I
don't know
just,
we don't know
he's,
really know history that well, and when he goes to these towns and shows these buildings where people are still living in them, these families are still
right.
running and controlling things, especially in the United States, we don't really have that kind of history where they would just put all that symbolic stuff out there. And you start to see, no wonder people believed in Frankenstein and the vampire and all this stuff, because some of these things that are on these people's, castles and buildings, you're just
Yeah,
like, my God, they put it right out there that they eat people. I mean, they have statues in their front yards in the flower bed of humans eating children. Like they
right. No,
just
I
put
would
it
definitely
out
love to
there.
see his videos, because, there is a woman in the Northwest and then a woman in Canada that actually encountered this kind of stuff like in the 70s in their practice. And I don't know how they did it, but they outreached one another, and there's like a small group of psychologists and social workers that are part of a group, and they're like basically their collaboration is the only resource for mental health professionals, because it's not like we get this training at graduate school. There's not a course, there's not a chapter in abuse about this kind of stuff, because it's not known mainstream. So but then it's like, all right, well, I'm a fish out of water here, so like, can you guide me, like? And so it's really great that they did start that, and then of course him going from talking about his experiences, it kind of helps the helpers if something comes their way. But wow, I definitely am interested in the video.
Yeah, I'm posting. So he has them, the Pharaoh Show France, the Pharaoh Show Switzerland, the Pharaoh Show. He shows kind of all over. Hold on a second, let me get this. But I'll just I think there's three
How did we get onto
parts.
this topic? I don't remember how we segued here.
Oh, it doesn't matter. That's why I like this collab, because we can like just kind of go all over the place.
Stream of consciousness,
We went from
compost
we went
to
from making our
plastic,
own medicines to
water to child abduction and
We
escape
got
from the
here through,
Illuminati.
we got here through a gentleman named Isaac Cappy convincing a person to come out of the closet with their experience. But Isaac Cappy is now deceased, and he apparently took to bridge diving, which is not a very good way of keeping yourself alive.
There is lots of evidence. He gave a video, and before he went, he said he did something and it was a mistake. He didn't mean to do it, and he kept saying over and over, "I am not suicidal. I am not suicidal." I believe he was.
Too high profile.
I don't think that they like what he did. Whatever, you know, God only knows, because so much of this is still not come out. Um, but whatever, he alluded to something that he either said or did, and it was almost like he took it too far. And like I said, once you come out, you can't be reticent again, you know. And not all cases are made the same. I mean, this particular person was trafficked from a country in Europe, and she was assigned to very, very, very the highest level of
Well, look at that Asian kid that was crawling out the window. He was trafficked from somewhere in Asia, right? And he was climbing out of one of the most prominent fucking people on earth. The Queen's castle in England, right? I mean,
yeah.
this
I
is
mean,
the
there,
thing.
and no two like, while there's similarities in terms of like the ritual, the whole process for abducting them and things like that, everyone's situation is different for
Yeah.
that kind of thing. And so with that, just like anything else, it's not like a light switch on and off. There's different, you have to assess, like, just like domestic violence victims, when they come in the ER, do what's called a lethality assessment, and it's an assessment to identify the lethality of their situation, of like how likely, or if they were to return home, what is the level of lethality if they were to go back to the person. And so I think it would be kind of the same. What would be the level that you're pissing people off that you're gonna get whacked, or like, which I guess would be a lethality assessment. But there's not enough information to be able to even assess something like that, to properly guide them and tell them. But ultimately, people are in charge of making their own decisions, and just have to say, I hope you really think this through. But sometimes people just get swept up in the moment, and whatever he said on that video, 2 days before he ended up dead, "I'm not suicidal." And he said, basically, I did something that took it too far, and I can't undo it. And that was that.
Yeah. No, and that can happen. And it also depends on where you're at in those systems. There are some friends of mine were high grade MK Ultras. They had potential that they showed as kids, so they put them into certain kinds of programs. So there's higher MK Ultra and lower MK Ultra. There's the sacrificial type MK Ultra, and then there's also the other ones that are probably going to be more prone to military or are assassins. And some of them don't even know. I mean, my friend Bear, when his friend Robert Duncan first came out, he was one of the first ones, and he never even was in the military. He never remembered any of these programs that he was in. He didn't know anything about that person of him. And then what happened
Yeah.
was he was just like this normal person, like average Joe working a job, um, for a pension, blah, 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 and got in this horrific car accident. And he was taken to the hospital, and they ran him through the MRI machine, and the chip in his head like short circuited,
Oh my God.
fried. Yeah, it could have killed him. And once the chip fried, then he started going through this process of remembering all these things. And he, at
Oh
first,
wow.
he couldn't believe where this stuff was coming from, because he was this assassin working for, the elite. Like, he would go out and do, assassinations and stuff. And it was almost like it was a totally different person that was programmed into him, because he would not
Mm,
remember, wouldn't remember any of the stuff that he did. And when it
yeah.
started coming up, it was super hard for him to deal with, because he wasn't sure where it was coming from. It took him a while to realize, like, that he'd been fractured, into different personalities. And so some of
Oh,
this stuff started bleeding through. And he was the first one that actually came out publicly and started telling people. And he would just say, like, this is my experience. I'm still trying to figure it all out, but I'm pretty sure that I did do these things now. At first it didn't
wow.
seem that way, but now I'm pretty sure. But the thing
Wow.
is that because it fried his chip, um, they couldn't control him anymore, right? They couldn't put him out
Right.
or
Yeah.
switch him on and off. And so it took that control away. And I mean, you know, his life is always going to be forever changed, because he could have never, you know, even if they took his job away or whatever away, it wouldn't have mattered, because he couldn't go back to living that life anyway.
Right.
I mean,
Well,
after
Dr. Lenny, I
he's
think
figured out, yeah, go ahead.
I was just going to say to the point that you were making, ultimately by, having the call to action, he obviously, I mean, we the public can never know with all these John F. Kennedys, Martin Luther King, like these kinds of things. You never know with Epstein, died, murdered, or is he actually, was it just staged and he's actually living, in luxury, some underground tunnel under Colorado airport or something. I mean, we will never know. And so all we can do is conspiracy theory. But
He's off with
ultimately
his friend Bibi.
what was that?
He's off with his friend Bibi from Israel and another guy named Osama bin Laden.
Oh, are you making a joke or is that real? I mean,
You can't
anything's
tell anymore,
possible.
can we? But no, I've read where Epstein is alive and in hiding with a lot of the characters who are in the national newspapers, but are underground because if they came to the surface, somebody would kill them.
Or they would open
Interesting.
their mouths and be forced to cathart all the things that they were involved in, and maybe even name some people in it, in the involvement.
I mean, what a weird world. Well, the thing that when I saw the picture, I have never known a medical examiner, or in Allegheny County, it was a coroner, to pick up a body and not zip it up all the way. Like, why would you put a dead body in a body bag and leave it unzipped for the face to show?
Right.
Oh, it
And
was a
as for,
stage. It was super
well, it
staged.
was all staged, but if he was really, it was almost like this is the evidence that he's dead. We want the public to buy that he's dead. That's what
Yeah,
it
yeah.
said to me. Like, that was my first inkling, but it's just a hunch. I can't prove it.
But this is
How
the
am I
other
going to
thing
prove
too.
it?
Do
But
do
it's
we
just
honestly?
very bizarre that they would not zip the body bag all the way up as they're transferring the body from the prison into the coroner's truck.
Well, this is
Like,
the
why
other
would you
thing.
leave the face open? That's just
Why would
unreal.
they? Why would they actually put? This is my first question. We think that they would actually put Epstein in a jail. You know, they're not
Good
going to put
point.
somebody like him in a jail.
He's at Club Med.
Well, I mean, the thing is, you wouldn't want him to die in that jail with those other people,
Oh, I
um,
see what you're saying,
and because he
because
needs to
of
go
all
to
the information.
court, right?
Yeah, you
And
need
so,
him. You need him alive to make your
yeah,
case,
and
right?
so you wouldn't even put him
Right.
in a jail. So I don't
Oh,
even
that's
think, I
a
don't even
good
think he
question.
was being held in a jail anyway. I think that they
Maybe.
had him somewhere and then they put him in a bag and paraded him around from one place to another just so somebody could take a video or some photos so they could put it out to us, like he committed suicide. Because then the public goes, oh, okay, well, that's over with. And then the judge came out right after the suicide 3 days later and said that he wasn't, that he was closing the whole case now because Epstein had committed suicide, but yet there were 15 people that were named that needed to be investigated, that needed to be brought in to testify for crimes and involvement with Epstein. But yeah, the judge was going to shut the whole thing down because Epstein died. It was so wacko. I mean, talk about which one of these things doesn't go together. Which one of
Our,
these things
our
doesn't
entire,
belong?
the entire court system is totally wacko. I don't know why we give it any credibility at all.
Dr. Lenny, didn't you tell me one time that the Pennsylvania's Supreme Court is actually more powerful than uh, the national one?
Yeah, something that I had read claimed that Pennsylvania, by virtue of having a court that was formed before the Supreme Court, actually had supremacy over the Supreme Court.
And it's
Oh wow,
still
that's good.
yeah, and it's technically it's a commonwealth. And there was a lot of stuff with the Catholic Church with what's his name, Penn State,
Wasn't
Jerry
Pennsylvania?
Sandusky,
Terminal,
and
Sandusky. Yeah.
yes, and me and this other guy from Ohio, we had been doing some online research, and all of these things, they all seem to tie back to one core town. And even the closing of the Planned Parenthood in Philadelphia, or the investigation in Philadelphia, the Planned Parenthood, and so we had just connected the dots, and um, he's the one that organized all the research, but I would say here I'm passing this along. He has a podcast where he connects all the dots, but it just seemed like at all of these things that had happened, like they're just dots, right? And then you start saying, well, God, that sounds similar to this. Or, you know what? The donor on this list is also a donor for that one. Oh, isn't this interesting? This person who donates is actually the board of directors here. And so you saw all this stuff intertwining. And then it's like, wow, there's just one big freaking operation in the state. And then maybe there's one in every single state.
Yeah, well, yeah, and I think it goes to every country, and then there are some countries that oversee other countries. But I know that the lease or was so in America we have in law we have what we call three Americas or three United States, and you can see the how it's spelt. The different types of ways that they make the statement of the United States, like the United States of America is one United States. The United States is another one. Then you have the one that is more of the common law one, from way back. So you can even see in the US, and that I think Australians, there was a big hubba going on about 10 years ago, 8 years ago, when most of the Australians started finding out that the pink slip on their country was owned by the United States.
Oh,
So
wow.
it was kind of the secret, but yet the Queen owned the United States, right? So the IRS is hers. That's we pay her when we pay the IRS. So, there's all this cover up, right? That's impossible to find as well unless you start, traveling down those rabbit holes about who owns what.
Right.
And so and that's why they do, kind of the things that they do. But yeah.
So I have a question for you guys, and Lenny, especially because you have a radio show New Way that's temporarily, restructuring or whatever. Do you think that like it takes digging into this information and revealing it as well as, you know, putting people together to start crafting a new way, or do you think we shouldn't give energy because I mean, we already know that they're toxic. I mean, like, where's the balance? Because sometimes, it's almost like I can't look away. It's like I keep digging, and then I'm like, why am I reading all this stuff? Part of it's because I can't believe
Well,
it, but
I think
it's
you,
not getting me anywhere. And
but
so it's like maybe this
yeah.
energy should be spent towards,
Well, that's
like
where we,
like
right.
the new way.
And I think we've been digging for a really long time, and now we need to actually start taking action. Like people picking up a shovel in whatever arena that they want and start digging. You know what I mean? To start planting something. So not using the digging to like go nowhere, because I mean, there's only so much of it that you can, take in before you go, okay, I need to change. I need to like get out there and create something completely different, because I can't trust anybody else to. That's not going to happen unless I get out there.
Each
Well,
of us to
yeah.
work on our own on human scale, and you know what's best for you. If you want to spend time tracking down a loose end on a theory like that, by all means do it, because it's something that interests you and you're in a position to know. But don't coerce other people into following you down your rabbit hole.
Right.
Invite them to join you if they wish, and if they don't wish, no harm, no foul. And everybody doing their own thing will
Mhm.
gain firsthand experience of knowledge. And then when we've all got some firsthand experience, then let's start talking together. But asking people to do stuff and telling them how to do it and not letting them learn how to do it for themselves is as tough a problem as them not knowing at all, because you can't really think for other people. Each of us has our own thought patterns and way of looking at things, but we certainly have it right when three of us can get to the same place using
Mhm.
totally different systems of thinking and yet end up in the same place.
That's a very good point.
Yeah, that's why I like our YouTube channel, our collab, because it's cool, because Victor's like, oh, I can't make it or whatever, and I'm like, who cares? Make it when you can. you know, there might be a period of time where me and Karen and Lenny can't do anything, and you're gonna have to be on there yourself.
Is he in the UK? Victor's in the UK, right?
Victor is in Denmark.
Okay. Is this too late of a time for him, possibly?
Well, no, he's hungover right now. It wasn't a problem. He was going to try to make it, but then he forgot about his little brother's birthday last night. And he
Okay.
said this morning when I was talking to him early, he said he was unbelievably hungover. And so, his day was going to be pretty rough. Probably spent mostly sleeping. I would think.
I think
Wow.
invite other people in also who've been part of our group before and have them add their voice to the experience that we're collecting and see how
Yeah,
many different ways we can come up with solid ideas that make
right.
sense to each of
But
us.
this is the thing, is like we can't give any more people access to the YouTube channel, because it'll start kind of getting out of control.
Well, we can discuss strategy
Yeah. But
for
if
the
people want to come
collaborative.
on, yeah, if people want to come on the collab, totally. If
Yeah, if you're out there
people,
listening to this and you want to put your 2 cents in, I mean, reach out. Where should they email us, Bridget?
well, we actually have several places that they can email us.
Well, let's give them one.
But
We'll
the
and we'll
email
we'll
is,
write it in the links too. We'll in the
yeah,
description box of this video. We'll
on the
say,
you
hey, yeah,
yep, on the YouTube channel we have an official email address that I created, and it's thinkcolab@gmail.com. And you
now
should be able to find it on the YouTube channel. And then if people send me an email, even if I don't check that one, it gets sent to another email. So it automatically shows up in the one that I use a lot. So that way I can get back to people. But so far we have not had any contact. So you can try to contact us at thinkcolab, COLAB, at gmail.com.
Yes, and I just remembered that the about page, it has everybody's stuff. So all three of
Individual
us have
contact.
information and contact information that you can. But yeah, but at any rate, thanks for listening. So we really hit like a marathon of like just information. I love how it's almost like word association with Dennis the philosopher.
Well, Lenny, do you have anything last to throw out there before we head off into the sunset?
I'm in Discord some mornings now, and if anybody wants to come into Discord, into the New Way server just to chat, I'm getting back into the mode of listening to people as I'm compiling information for my next book.
I can put an invite for the server in the link below.
Okay.
That's
Sounds
thank you.
great.
Golden Wizard said he's the boss in the house. That's my dog. Golden Wizard's last words are, "It's time to curl up and sleep. It's cold." He just dug like a little hole for himself. You know, like dogs like to make like a little spot for them to curl up in, and those are his final thoughts.
All right, it's time. It's Sunday night. It's time to curl up and snuggle.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Thanks so much. I'll get this recording up ASAP, and have a great. What did he call it? Corporate disease holiday tomorrow.
Oh, I know. I love the names that Lenny puts on things. There should be a whole dictionary, just like Dr. Times.
Yeah.
Dictionary of words or whatever.
Yeah, happy corporate disease holiday tomorrow to everyone out there.
Industrial disease.
Oh, there you go.
It's in dire straits.
Happy corporal. Oh man, I'm getting tongue twisted.
Corporate industrial disease.
Okay, thanks.
CID.
CID.
Yeah.
Sid.
Yeah, we'll appeal the American Medical Association, see if we can't lobby for them to include it in one of the codes for diagnosis.
Yeah, they should
in the medical books.
Because it probably causes everything else, right?
Honestly, my old job that was like corporate insurance, once a week there was an ambulance in front of our building. And like we'd go out for lunch and we'd be like, another person having chest pains at our job.
Oh no, that's terrible.
Where we sit all day, people eat and they're getting fat because they're not mobile, and it's punitive, it's stressed. You get screened for every little thing you can do. Yeah, absolutely. It probably is contributing to a lot of mental and physical diseases.
Everything, yeah.
I shouldn't be laughing. It's sad, but I mean.
Well, sometimes you got to laugh. That's how you deal. That's a good way to
insane.
deal with it.
If we can't sustain this lifestyle, then humanity will literally just burn out.
Well,
we weren't designed for these lifestyles. I mean, it's not. Something's got to give. That's why we're going to build a new way.
That's why we're doing the new way and the thinkcolab.
Right, thinking out loud.
Yeah, thinking out loud. All right, guys, have a great night. I'll talk to you soon. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Later.
Later.